Season programs yesterday: Bills, Dolphins, Steelers, Browns, Raiders, Titans, Giants, Falcons, and Cardinals. Let's start with that man, Josh Allen, arriving in Buffalo. Hey, Harry Douglas, have the Bills done enough this offseason to build a Super Bowl roster around their quarterback?
Well, first, let me say this, Greeny. As long as Josh Allen is the quarterback for the Buffalo Bills, they're always going to be Super Bowl contenders. Now, I like them going to get Bradley Chubb and adding C.J. Gardner-Johnson to their secondary, but I think they need to add more depth amongst their defensive line and then also more depth in their linebacking core. The reason why I say that about the linebackers, the last few years, you've seen multiple guys get injured at that position, and they need to make sure that they have backups or guys that can fill in those roles at a high productive level.
So that's the defensive side, Lewis. They also struggled with playmaking on the offensive side. They added DJ Moore. Is that enough, you think, to put them over the top?
Yeah, look, I have a lot of respect for DJ Moore. I just don't see him as being one of those championship-defining pieces that you could wind up saying, hey, look, this is a guy who puts you over the top. Otherwise, look, why would Chicago get rid of a guy like that? Look, I understand that they got some fantastic weapons in Chicago and may have deemed him expendable, but when you watch DJ Moore's tape, it just doesn't really strike me as being something that you say on another team, this guy is the missing link. I think this is about Josh Allen. It's about Josh Allen playing his best in critical moments, and as Harry pointed out, it's about health on the defensive side, especially on the defensive line on the interior. These guys have to step up. Bradley Chubb has to play out of his mind, and this secondary has to make critical plays. I don't think that they have really made huge strides. I think it's more about some of the players that they have already playing even better than they played in the past.
Let's talk about a different team in a different situation and another player who wants to play better, and that's Shedeur Sanders in Cleveland. He arrived for the offseason workouts. How do you see this path for him? If he's going to become the starting quarterback in Cleveland and he's going to give himself a real shot to be in that role into the future, how does he do it?
Look, I think he has to really master Todd Monken's offense, and that means playing on time, making great decisions, protecting the football, and having the offense look from a fundamental perspective the way Todd wants it to look. And look, that's just the reality of it. And I understand that now you're learning another system, another new system. You're going to be going up against a guy who is a veteran in Deshaun Watson, who some people have high expectations of. But I think for him, it's about making sure he masters this offense to the best of his ability. That's really the only thing he can control. And quite honestly, the only thing Todd Monken's going to be looking for.
Harry, how do you see that quarterback battle in Cleveland shaping up?
Well, I think for Shedeur, number one, you're dealing with the play caller and the guy that's your head coach that wanted you with the Baltimore Ravens. That's a plus. But I agree with Riddick. You have to grasp this system inside and out. The other thing you have to do, you have to earn the trust of not just your teammates, but the coaching staff and the people in the front office upstairs. If those people cannot trust you, especially your teammates, you're not going to be out there as a starting quarterback. But play consistently. Take care of the football, and Shedeur Sanders will be okay.
Okay, we have much more football conversation as our more under John Harbaugh, and one player noticeably absent was Dexter Lawrence. Sexy Dexy. We know he has made a trade request. John Harbaugh, I'm going to paraphrase what he said yesterday. I want to take the time up here to play it for you. But John Harbaugh basically said, in a very politically correct way, we want him back. But that's what you say. If you were the New York Giants right now, I got Lewis and Harry Douglas with me. If you're the New York Giants right now, you trading away Dexter Lawrence?
I would be very reluctant to do so. I mean, you got a guy on the right side of 30 years old. He's one of the most double-team defensive tackles in the National Football League because of the fact that the guy can push the pocket. His production dipped a little bit this year, but that's not indicative of where he's at in his career. This is a team that really struggled to stop the run this year. What's your next best alternative? If you're not real deep at the position, you're going to really replace this guy, when it comes to the draft. You think you're going to get a one-for-one exchange there? Probably not. Look, this really just comes down to money. That's what it's going to come down to. Dex wants to be paid. He wants to be paid like some of the best interior players in the NFL, which is upward around $30 million per year, right around that area. And he is underpaid right now, relatively speaking. We'll see how this goes.
All right, we'll keep an eye on the Dexter Lawrence situation. But of all the things that came out of the Giants yesterday, that, to me, was not the most interesting one. The most interesting one was Matt Nagy. He's the Giants' first-year offensive coordinator, and he was asked about the quarterback that he's there to continue grooming, and that's Jackson Dart. And listen to what the coach said.
And I remember then at the combine, us not really being in the quarterback market, watching him, you could see this moxie that he had, and he had this it factor. When I got here to New York and got to meet him, you could tell right away that everything was true. I mean, this kid is different that way. I know he had a great year last year, but we want to make it even better and continue to have him grow, and I want to be there to help him.
Big spotlight on Dart, big spotlight on Nagy as the Giants. They're a team a lot of people, and by a lot of people, I'm raising my hand, I'm one of them, think could make a huge jump this year if things break their way. Harry, what do you think? If Jackson Dart gets this thing going in the right direction, what could you see the Giants doing this coming year?
Yeah, I see them making the playoffs, Greeny. I said it as soon as John Harbaugh got hired there, before they made the moves of Patrick Ricard and bringing Isaiah Likely. And we seen yesterday in Peter Schrager's mock draft that they were going to potentially draft Francis Maui Noah. That tells me that this team wants to run the football. They want to win the line of scrimmage both ways. I would not trade Dexter Lawrence, but I think a lot of this, for it to be able to work, is going to be on Matt Nagy as well. The last two times that he's had a young quarterback, Justin Fields and Trubisky, it has not fared out on the right side of things. So can he be consistent from a coaching standpoint with a young quarterback? Not like he has been in the last two players that he's dealt with from a young quarterback perspective. But I think for Jackson Dart, being consistent, playing 17 games, I believe this team can make the playoffs and actually give a lot of people problems.
I like that a lot here. And how about the Nagy of it all? Is there a real spotlight? Things didn't end well in Kansas City.
100%. And look, Matt is a friend of mine.
Yeah.
Full disclosure. I have a ton of respect for him. The light is white hot on him. Because, look, what Jackson had with Brian Daboll, you couldn't deny. Now, you could say, well, Brian didn't necessarily, kind of get into Jackson's head about protecting himself. That'll come with experience, I believe. And I think Jackson will see the light as far as that's concerned, as far as him living the fight another down, not putting himself in harm's way. Matt has to establish that same kind of rhythm with him, that same kind of relationship with him, put him in the same type of positions, craft an offense that is similar to what he had at Ole Miss, which is when Jackson was at his best with the Giants. Fast-paced, spread offense, throwing the football. Look, there's a lot of pressure on Matt Nagy this year. There's a lot of pressure on this football team. I, for one, don't necessarily see them as being playoff contenders this year. I think this defense still needs a lot of work, especially on the interior. Stopping the run is critical. You know that in the NFC overall. They have a lot of work still to do. They'll be better. I just don't know if they'll a playoff team this year.
Well, if they're going to get better with stopping the run, trading Dexter Lawrence, I think would be a very weird way to go about trying to do it. But he wants out, and we'll see if they're willing to give him the money. Let me get up and go for you here. There was a lot of news yesterday. Our Get Up and Go was brought to you by Nature Made, and it starts with reigning Cy Young Award winner Paul Skeens. He took a no-hitter into the sixth last night, striking out 6 as the Pirates beat the Padres 7-1. Skeens has given up just 2 runs in 2 starts after being rocked on opening day by the Mets. You may have seen this yesterday. Gino Auriemma has now apologized directly to Dawn Staley about Friday night's outburst. In a statement, Auriemma said the two spoke yesterday and that he, quote, lost himself. Staley also released a statement saying one moment doesn't define a career. So the two of them are putting this in their past. Meanwhile, the future of North Carolina basketball at a news conference yesterday. Michael Malone, introduced by Carolina Blue, signs a 6-year deal worth an average of over $8 million a year, top 5 in the sport. And Malone is already talking about Duke.
I'm excited to be a part of that rivalry. I want to add to that rivalry. I want to win. And I know that Duke is a program down the road and they've had success, but, as I said earlier, I didn't come here to be second best. I didn't come here to lose in the first round of the ACC tournament. I came here to win and win at a big level.
Well, the last time that Carolina won on that kind of level, it'll be 10 years ago next season. Carolina hasn't won 30 games in a year since the 26-17 season, which is the last time they won the championship. It's the longest stretch of seasons by the Tar Heels without winning 30, going back 25 seasons from the 1950s to the early 80s. Coming up, the Kings court. LeBron had some very interesting things to say about his new role in L.A. You will hear it. It raises fascinating questions about his future. We'll answer them for you. Plus, the Shedeur showdown in Cleveland. Should he be the starter next season? What's he got to do beginning right now to win that job? We'll be